I'll never forget going to my first comic book convention. I'm 6 years old. We're living in Teaneck, New Jersey. My dad says to my mom and I, come on, we're going to the city. We pile into our Pontiac station wagon. We drive across the George Washington Bridge. We spend what feels like 4 hours looking for affordable parking. We finally find it approximately 14 blocks away from wherever this comic book convention is, which is, I think, a ballroom in some hotel. And I'm just expecting to see a bunch of other families and a lot of other kids like me. We arrive at the comic book convention, and I'm the only kid there. I'm basically dwarfed by all the grown-ups around me, and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of comic books. And my dad turns to my mom and I, and he hands us a list. And here's the deal with my dad's list. It's 1951. My dad is 11 years old, and he is obsessed with comic books. And he keeps this sort of running inventory of all the comic books that he has, and he puts them in a box, and he keeps the box in his closet. And he goes away to Boy Scout camp, and he comes back, and he opens up the closet, and the box is gone. And he says to his mom, where are my comic books? And she goes, oh, I threw them away. She was not trying to be a horrible person. She didn't have anything against comic books. She was just sort of like, oh, this was just crap in the closet. This becomes my father's origin story. He is heavily traumatized by this event because those comic books represented this escape for him. And my dad vows in this moment that he will put this collection back together. He doesn't care if it takes his entire life. He will do this. And now, here we are, back in the late 1970s, and my dad is handing us this list. And on this list is a copy of his vanished collection. And so issue by issue, comic by comic, it was our job to reconstitute the initial collection. So we split up, and we go from table to table, and we ask people, do you have this one? Do you have this one? Do you have this one? And if we find one, he comes over and then engages in a fierce haggling session with whoever it is who's selling that. And I'm standing there going like, oh my God, if this person only knew how desperate my dad is to actually get this comic book. And so, piece by piece, issue by issue, he reconstitutes the collection. And I'll never forget, we find the final issue. And my mom found it, and she went running up to my dad, and she's like, I found it. And he just walked over, haggled the guy down, and his mission was complete. And I expected there to be some grandiose celebration. But life just kind of went on. So now it's 1986. I'm 13 years old. My parents have gotten divorced. My dad has had his own place for 3 years now. And by that point, he had amassed thousands of other comic books in addition to his original collection. And so I'm staying at my dad's place, and he comes up to me and he hands me these 2 comic books. And he says, you're not ready for this. And then he just walks away mysteriously. And I just could kind of feel them crackling in my hands, almost like they had some sort of charge. These comics looked unlike any comics that I had ever seen before. And my dad was right. I was not ready for it. I think that my dad wanted to have a friend that he could talk about this thing that he loved with. And so we treated Watchmen almost like Talmudic scholars. Every single character in Watchmen has an origin story. And it is explained to us why they do what they do, why they turned out the way that they turned out. And so I knew that I couldn't do justice to this incredible piece of culture and writing that inspired me as a kid if it wasn't about origin stories. So I wanted to take the same approach, and I wanted to, for lack of a worse pun, show what made people tick.